Anyway, good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's coffee chat, and we're so glad to have you join us for this important and insightful session. Veterans Benefit Uncovered meets rumors and proper planning for VA and government benefits. Of course, our speaker today is someone who has dedicated his life to helping others navigate the often confusing world of government programs like VA benefits, Medicaid, Social Security, Medicare, etc. So allow me to introduce our speaker today, a Gulf War military veteran who served our country for nearly 5 years. A life member of the Disabled American Veterans, he has firsthand experience with the challenges veterans face when seeking the support they've earned. This inspired him to become the Veterans Benefits Guy, a trusted expert in the senior living industry. Certified in long-term care and trained as a federal benefits counselor, he has helped hundreds of families make informed decisions about financial and healthcare needs, ensuring they get the benefits they're entitled to efficiently and effectively. His expertise span everything from long-term care planning to navigating complex government system. So, just as a quick note before we dive in, our speaker is a care planning strategies and the Veterans Benefits Assistance Program are independent consultants and are not affiliated with any government agency. Anyway, without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Scott Ferguson. Scott, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much for the great introduction, Dexter, and thank you, Barbara and Visiting Angels, for having us on today to help spread the word a little bit to veterans, their families, and others that may be interested in serving the veteran community. I found out myself that it was very difficult learning how to navigate the system with the VA. Being a veteran of the Gulf War, I had heard I was entitled to some benefits and I had applied. And a short 6 months later, I got my denial letter. And like a good soldier, I just circular filed that and marched on and took care of business as the VA obviously knew more than I did, telling me that I wasn't entitled to those benefits. Sometime later, I was helping an elderly gentleman get his benefits from the VA, and it was a complicated case. I ended up working with a veteran service officer, and turns out we were about the same age. We were in the military at about the same time, or at exactly the same time. And we had served over in Saudi Arabia during the first Gulf War, only a mile apart. We had never met each other, but he said, you should have applied for your Gulf War benefits. I said I did, and he said, that's great. And I said, but I was denied. And he had a little bit of a meltdown there and said, you shouldn't have been denied those benefits. Let's take a look in your file and see what's going on there. He said, well, you only filled out this one form and sent it in. I said, yeah, I went to the county office and that's what they told me to do. Well, you never filled out this form. And, there's something in your file here. I'm going to pull that and, I'm going to make a statement for you. I need you to sign this paper to put it together and put a more complete claim in for you. And a light bulb kind of went off for me that said, boy, it really makes a difference when you have someone that knows what they're doing and knows what they're talking about. So he filed a more complete claim for me, and a short 6 months later, I was approved for my benefits. Unfortunately, that was 15 years after I had first applied. So I missed out on 15 years worth of benefits simply because I didn't know how much I didn't know. And I wish I would have had somebody like me at that time. And that was really a turning point in my life when working in the senior community. I would see older veterans and their widows and spouses struggling with getting these benefits, no one there to help, going to service officers, veteran service organizations that only knew enough to say, well, if you want this benefit, we look down the sheet and here's the thing that the one that you need to get, take this form and fill it out and send it into the VA and see what happens. Well, it's a government agency. It's much like the IRS. They leave it up to you to figure out how they work. So just imagine if you went to your CPA or your tax preparer and said, oh, yeah, you want to file your taxes? Sure. Here's the forms. I'll give you the forms. You take them and fill them out and send them in and see what happens. You'd probably never talk to that person again. You'd slam the door on the way out because that's not really a service. So unfortunately, the VA doesn't offer, you know, doesn't make it easy for people to help people get their benefits from the VA. You know, we work with veteran service officers, we work with VA accredited attorneys, we work with national service organizations, nonprofit organizations, and we have all the oversight that the VA requires people to have when they are applying for their benefits with the VA. There are a lot of benefits on the VA, and you know, we've got a limited amount of time here today. I'll cover as much as I can. I know we'll probably have some questions, so please feel free to put those in the chat, and we will try and cover those. I believe Dexter or Barbara will be monitoring those chats, and they'll give me a warning, you know, maybe 15 or 20 minutes before we're wrapping up so we can do some questions and answers then. Primarily today, we're going to focus on veterans that are available to seniors and what helps them the most. Now, we all know that the VA is set up to take care of veterans themselves, but there are some benefits, although limited, there are some benefits that are available to widows and spouses of veterans as well. Now, one thing I want to start out with is a lot of people confuse a couple things. One, I hear a lot of older vets, they think they are not considered veterans because they were not in a war, and that is not correct. Anyone that was willing to write out a blank check to the United States of America for up to and including their life is considered a veteran, whether wartime or peacetime. Now, there are different classifications of veterans. There are wartime veterans that served during a wartime period or a war era. There are peacetime veterans, older veterans, Cold War veterans, sometimes they say that during peacetime. Then there are combat veterans that were actually in combat, that were maybe boots on the ground during an insurgency or a wartime period. So regardless, anyone that writes out that blank check to the US for up to and including their life is considered a veteran. Reservists, National Guard, there are some separate benefits for them. Reserve units, National Guard units, they have eligibility offices that can help them understand what benefits are available for them as well. The services that are available to veterans, there are 3 different branches of the VA. First is the healthcare side of the VA that people are most familiar with. That's the doctors, the hospitals, the prescriptions, drugs, and things along that lines. If you have a service-connected disability, meaning an illness or injury caused by your military service, you can file a claim with the VA, and there's a rating that goes along with that. That rating will quite potentially grant you some services through the healthcare part of the VA, and maybe all through the finance part of the VA. But on the healthcare side of it, that's where they will cover anything that is considered service-related illness or injury. So for instance, if a Vietnam veteran was in country and was exposed to dioxin, otherwise known as Agent Orange, and they have diabetes, it is a presumptive award, or they automatically assume that diabetes is caused by their exposure to dioxin. So they will give you everything that goes along with that. They will give you the test strips and the little thing to prick your finger to do the tests. If you start to have poor circulation, they'll give you the circulation socks. If it progresses further and you need corrective shoes to go along with it, they'll do that. If its circulation becomes so bad, you need part of a lower limb amputated, they will take care of the surgery, they will take care of the recovery, they will take care of the OT and PT that goes along with your adaptive device, otherwise known as a separate limb or something to replace that limb. Those are called presumptive awards. There are several other presumptive awards as well. ALS is one. If you ever come across someone with ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, automatically you should ask them were you a veteran or did you serve in the military? If so, they should apply for 100% disability. And that is a presumptive award that that ALS is caused by their military service. I heard this from the ALS Foundation, not directly from the VA, but ALS Foundation had told me that they believe there's something that we go through in that physical and mental breakdown when we go through basic training or boot camp that later manifests itself as ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease. So if you do come across someone, let them know they should apply to the VA for benefits, for compensation for that. Also, there is contaminated water from Camp Lejeune. If you're familiar with that, I'm sure everyone has heard a commercial on the radio or television at some point where they were saying contaminated water at Camp Lejeune has caused a lot of illnesses, and there's 8 neurological cancers and illnesses and 8 neurological cancers and neurological diseases that are caused by contaminated water in Camp Lejeune. There was contaminated water there from 1953 to 1987, and over 700,000 Marines, family members, and support personnel were exposed to this contaminated water. People that lived there for more than 60 days drank that water in Camp Lejeune, and some of the surrounding concerns and posts in that area could be entitled to benefits not only from the VA, but they have opened it up for a suit filed against the government that could potentially get other monetary benefits paid to those family members, even if the veteran has already deceased or the person contaminated by the water from Camp Lejeune. If they died because of that or had illness or injury because of that, there could be additional compensation through that lawsuit. Anyone that has that illness or injury caused by the contaminated water can apply to the VA for compensation as well. My father was a good example of that. And in the 1990s, we never knew that when he lost a kidney, it was most likely caused by the contaminated water that he drank in 1954 when he was a Marine in Camp Lejeune. He later developed Parkinson's disease and had that for several years before he died in 2017. Now, January of 2017 is when they released the information about these presumptive awards. And luckily, doing what I do, I got an email directly to my desk that came from the Director of Congressional Affairs at Coatesville VA Medical Center. And it said there was contaminated water at Camp Lejeune, 8 neurological cancers and diseases. Parkinson's was one of them. So I immediately filed for a claim for my dad. Luckily, knowing how to do that, I got that turned around in a very short order, got him approved for his disability claim in about 30 days. Unfortunately, he did not get to enjoy that benefit for very long. He died in June of the same year. But if there is a silver lining to that black cloud, my mother now gets what's called a DIC benefit from the VA, dependency and indemnity compensation, because not only was my father, her husband's, not only was his life cut short, but his income was cut short. And if you call the VA for a surviving spouse, or they call and say, can I get my spouse's disability income continued? They will give you the correct answer. And that is, no, you cannot. But we've had families that asked that question and no one ever elaborated that they could potentially apply for the DIC benefit and get that to help replace and supplement some of that income. So it's not just been my own experiences for me dealing with the disabilities I've incurred through military service and with the VA, but also my father as a disabled veteran and my mother as a recipient of the DIC benefit, because his illness and injuries caused him to end his life early and predeceased because of his Parkinson's.
Hey, Scott.
Yes, ma'am.
We got a quick question in there. Bradley has asked, he said that he had served in the U.S. Army from 76 to 79. He applied and they said that his income was too high. Now, I don't know all the particulars on that. I do know that I had another veteran do the same thing because he was actually working as a defense contractor as a civilian afterwards and was getting benefits through the federal government. So I don't know if that's the case with Bradley or not. Bradley, if you want to embellish a little bit, but if you want to address that.
Sure. So their different benefits have different requirements. So for instance, you wouldn't apply for exposure to Agent Orange if you weren't in an area where Agent Orange was used, for instance. Now, when it comes to your regular veterans that retired, maybe served during peacetime, like Bradley did, and you apply for benefits through the VA, there are things they're going to look at. They're going to look at income. Some benefits, they're going to also look at assets, but not all benefits. So for instance, Bradley could most likely go to the VA regardless of his income or assets and apply for glasses and hearing aids and be able to get those things. But to apply for assistance with medication, it would be subject to an income limitation. And oddly enough, that income limitation is based on zip code. You could live in one zip code and the income limitation would be less than if you lived in another zip code. So I do encourage everyone to get plugged into the VA and at least find out what things you may be eligible for. If you're not eligible now at this time, you may be eligible at another time. So in Bradley's case, if he's still working and has a higher income, that may disqualify him from benefits like getting assistance with medications. Now, there are certain medications that the VA, I believe, will help everyone with, if considering things that have to do with glaucoma or blindness, high cost of medications that are typically prohibitive for most people to get. You will have to talk to your VA doctor about that. You also talk to your VA pharmacist once you get plugged into the VA. And if you're unsure how to get plugged in, contact your closest VA medical center and ask for the eligibility office. They will ask for a copy of your discharge papers, typically called a DD-214, act for separation from active duty. They want to know the date that you went into the military and the date that you got out of the military, and that you have a status other than dishonorable. Now, many people say, oh, an honorable discharge. And you hear that all the time. And that is mostly what people get, honorable discharge. But many times they're someone that may have been discharged for the needs of the military, simply because maybe the war was over and they just started sending people home. So their tour of duty got cut short by no fault of their own. It could have been a medical discharge because they were injured during their military service. It could have been other than honorable conditions because of an incident that happened in the military. But if it's not dishonorable, that's typically, you're typically going to be eligible for many benefits through the VA. A lot of people don't realize that dishonorable discharge is more than just not getting benefits from the VA. It's a big deal. You lose your right to vote. You lose your right to own firearms. So if someone does have a dishonorable discharge, depending upon the circumstances, they may be able to get that upgraded to a general discharge or an other than dishonorable discharge. There is a limited amount of legal advice that can be provided through the VA. They can do things like power of attorney, living wills for veterans, and if the veteran has a spouse, they'll oftentimes do it for them as well. And there's also organizations through many county offices that will help people with upgrading of a type of discharge that was not considered an honorable discharge. So there are a vast amount of resources out there. We're going to stay primarily focused on what the VA has to offer today, but just as a side note, I always encourage everyone to talk to the civilian organizations as well. Not necessarily just the American Legions, AMVETS, Marine Corps League, things like that. They're all out there. Sometimes they, have seminars or can provide information also. But there are things like Heroes Helping Heroes, U.S. military. I believe U.S. military veterans has several different organizations that help, that are civilian organizations that pull things together, helping military families in different areas. Wounded Warriors is another one. I don't know a lot of these organizations. I haven't dealt with them personally, but I have worked with other people that have worked with them and gotten good results. And I've always gotten good reports that they were able to help veterans and their families in a time of need in a variety of different circumstances. Talking about qualifications, going back to what Bradley was saying, some benefits do have more criteria than others. There's basic eligibility, and then there's qualifications that go along with that. One good example of that is a very underutilized benefit called the aid and attendance benefit. It is part of the improved pension program, and that comes through the pension maintenance centers, which is where the money is approved through the VA. And there are 3 of them in the country. There is one in St. Paul, Minnesota, another in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the third and largest of those is right here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, that is different than the VA hospital in Philadelphia. The Pension Maintenance Center that's in Philadelphia is a completely different organization. The hospital is part of the healthcare side of the VA, and the pension maintenance centers are part of the finance side of the VA. Pension maintenance centers are where the money comes from. They provide money to the improved pension program. They provide it as compensation to disabled veterans, DIC to widows, and this add-on to the improved pension program called the aid and attendance benefit. I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. I want to talk about that third leg of the VA quickly, because I do get a lot of questions about burial benefits. So that third part is the federal and the state cemeteries where veterans can be laid to rest. I always encourage people to talk to the place where you would like to be laid to rest sooner than later. Get registered with them, because they will need a copy of a DD 214. I have talked to families, and sometimes they'll say, yes, well, Dad's a vet. We're going to call the VA when the time comes to have him buried. My next question is, okay, what U.S. or state cemetery will he be going to? And they'll say, oh, no, we're going to our private cemetery at our church, our synagogue, our parish, wherever that may be, and he'll be laid to rest there. Okay, well, unless he's a disabled veteran, he's going to get about $300. If he's a disabled veteran, he'll get about $2,000. And the funeral home will be able to help orchestrate a graveside service through a local service organization like maybe American Legion, VFWs, to do a flag draped coffin and maybe a bugler and some military members to fold the flag. If they want everything taken care of, and all the rest of the expenses would be on the family, or they would have to have something set up like a prepaid burial or set up a funeral trust or something like that. And we can help people understand those a little bit better if they have more questions about that part. I also encourage people to get registered with the cemeteries sooner than later, because they have to know that this is a veteran of the United States military. So an example of that was a family had called at the time of need, but they didn't have a copy of discharge papers. So yes, they picked up the remains. The cemetery, the military cemetery and veteran cemetery did pick up the remains, but they had to hold Dad on ice for a couple of months while they ordered a copy of discharge papers from the National Personnel Records Center. Now, the National Personnel Records Center is in St. Louis, Missouri, and it takes a little bit of time to get those records. And another thing, I encourage people, if you have a copy of discharge papers and any military documents, don't ever get rid of the last copy of that. Always keep a copy on file. Reason being is in July of 1973, there was a fire that destroyed 25% of all military records. So if someone was discharged prior to that date, you may have the only copy in existence. And if you lose or give away that copy and don't get it back and need to apply for benefits, you may not be able to receive your benefits because the government may not have a record of that person ever being in the military. So whether it's for the veteran or the surviving spouse of the veteran, please make sure you have a copy of that DD-214. I saw a question pop up here, and it is not VD, it is DD, Delta 214. And that is an official copy of separation from the United States military. So a quick note on that. They're closest to our area here is Washington's Crossing. Now, the Philadelphia VA Cemetery, Veteran Cemetery, is full now. Washington's Crossing purchased another 100 acres several years back, and hopefully that never gets full. I did mention, I believe, that spouses can be married with a veteran, and believe it or not, more than one spouse can be buried with a veteran. In Washington's Crossing, there is a veteran there that is buried with 4 spouses. I always thought it would be funny to be a fly on the wall if all those spouses were alive, and I'd like to hear how that conversation went if they knew that they were all going to be buried together. So good thing he's already buried, or that would probably drive him into an early grave. So moving along, that's our 3 parts of the VA. We've got the veterans cemeteries. We have the healthcare side of things. Always encourage people to get plugged into that. They offer a variety of services. Again, another one that I get asked about a lot is home care services. Now, they don't offer it for spouses of veterans, but they do offer it for veterans. And the VA will directly pay different home care providers to come out and provide services to veterans, which would be paid for by the VA directly to them. It's not a reimbursement program. The veteran does not have to pay for that up front. They may have to pay for some of the hours that go along with that, because the VA will only provide a limited amount of hours. But talk to the home care agency that is providing those hours and see how that goes. When the doctor does the evaluation, and this has to be a VA doctor, remember. Now, the VA doctor does not take the place of your civilian doctor. You can have your civilian doctor, keep seeing that same person. You see the VA doctor in addition to your regular civilian primary care physician, because only a VA doctor can prescribe VA medications or VA services. The home care service, they would prescribe it just like a medication. They would do an evaluation, and they may say, this veteran needs 2 hours a day, 3 days a week. And then they would give you a list of some of the home care providers in the area, and then you would call them, work it out with them, and see if they have someone to accommodate the schedule, come out and provide those services. Now, they be aware that there may be some restrictions on that, like they have a 3 or 4 hour minimum, but the VA is only going to provide 2 hours. So there may be some out-of-pocket expense that goes along with it, but at least there's some type of coverage there. They also have what's called the family caregiver program. This is where the VA will actually pay a family member to be a paid caregiver. Sometimes the home care agencies will hire a family member to be the paid caregiver. So there are a couple different ways to get home care services for veterans that need that. They can also get those home care services if they're in an independent living community, as well as being at home. Another thing about home is what's called home-based primary care. If that veteran cannot travel, then home-based primary care will send a physician or physician assistants or nurse practitioner out to the veteran's home to do the evaluations and issue anything that the regular primary care physician would issue for them. That could be home improvements. It could be something like improving a bathroom so there's a roll-in shower and make it more handicap accessible. Handicap accessibility at the doors, maybe ramps coming in. Could be portable ramps, could be large permanent ramps. A transport chair, a wheelchair, an oxygen machine if it's needed, hospital bed, a trapeze over the bed to help them get in and out of the bed, guardrails on the side of the bed to keep them from falling out at night. My father had Parkinson's, and he wandered at night from some of the delusions that he would have. So they gave us pressure sensitive pads, so we knew if he got out of bed in the middle of the night. pads on the floor so he knew if he was wandering into different rooms at different times or in the middle of the night. He shuffled because of his Parkinson's, and there were hairs in the carpets and the rugs, so they replaced all the rugs in the house. I was very surprised to see that when that happened. The VA will also supply incontinence products, which is very rare. Typically, you only get incontinence products if you are receiving hospice care or if you're on Medicaid. The VA will also provide hospice services. So you don't have to get hospice through your Medicare Part B, or if you don't have Medicare Part B or insurances that would cover hospice, the VA will provide hospice services. They are two different buckets of money. The Medicare Part B is paid through what you're paying into your Social Security, or you also have Medicare supplemental insurance that you typically pay separately, or maybe you have an Advantage plan that encompasses all of that. Those are some benefits, like hospice services are covered by those insurances. But again, the VA can provide them separately from your insurance. There are times when you can use both services, things that are covered by your Medicare Part B, as well as things that are covered by the VA, such as the home care benefit. Medicare Part B and regular health insurance is not going to pay for things like long-term care services, such as home care or assisted living or memory care or even skilled nursing. Now, if it comes to needing that type of care, people should have a long-term care policy that pays that type of insurance, but they're not too common. Not everybody has that. Actually, very few people have that. But just because you do have that doesn't mean it's going to disqualify you from other benefits. That's where we can really help people understand how to work that into some of the benefits where there is an income calculation, because the long-term care policy could be considered income, but knowing how to withdraw just the right amount of that to keep you qualified for benefits can make all of the difference. One of those benefits, and going back to this, I started to talk about the aid and attendance benefit. And if you were to call a county office or a veteran service officer or someone and ask about that benefits, lots of times you'll get the answer. It says, well, if somebody has a long-term care policy, they can't get the aid and attendance benefit. And that is not always true. It depends how that policy is paid out. If they pay out a larger amount, it may be problematic. If they pay out a smaller amount, maybe stretch that policy out so it lasts longer. That is where we can really make that veterans benefit shine, because we get the benefit while still keeping the policy and keep the policy in force for a longer period of time, for a longer period of coverage and private pay. I think we all know that when we run out of money, at least we do have Medicaid to fall back on, which is a separate entity from the VA. A lot of people think Medicaid benefits and the qualification for those benefits are the same, and that is not true. Medicaid is considered catastrophic health care coverage. That means when someone becomes basically destitute, they can contribute their income and all of their assets and savings needs to be gone. Unless it's a married couple, there are things we can do to preserve that. But it is not true with VA. So for instance, with the aid and attendance benefit, there is an asset limitation. We're expecting that to be right around $160,000 at the end of the year. But just because someone has more money than that doesn't mean there's not other benefits that they could qualify for. Or we should probably talk about how to get them qualified sooner, or when they may become qualified for those benefits. If their assets are less than that, there are other things that the VA looks at. Being that it's called the aid and attendance benefit, they want to see that someone needs the aid and attendance of another person. That could be assistance with activities of daily living, such as bathing or showering, dressing. And this could be even standby assistance. If a person uses a walker or a cane, they're a fall risk. So any reasonable doctor would say, yes, it's very reasonable to have standby assistance when that person is bathing or showering. You don't have to wash them down. Just be there in the next room in case they fall so you can help them back up. It's called standby assistance. Now, if there's a cognitive decline and they need a protective environment, that's also taken into consideration. If there's a cognitive decline where they can't do their own banking and finances, it means that their fiduciary would have to be assigned to manage the funds for that person. So always very important to know when applying for VA benefits, especially the ones that are for seniors and money coming from the VA, always good to have a third party representative or an authorized third party with the VA to speak to that person on their behalf and or manage the funds in case, even if the claimant, the veteran or the spouse is capable at the time of handling their funds, it may come to a point in the future where they can't handle the funds, and it would be always good to have that person at the ready and understand how the VA works, how they got the benefits, and how to gather that information and get it properly submitted into the VA. VA is doing things electronically more all the time. They now have VA portals where people can upload information to the VA. They actually encourage people to upload information to the VA, and we strongly recommend and support that also, because if you upload 50 pages, which is about what it takes for the aid and attendance benefit, a complete packet is typically around 50 pages, and that gets uploaded to the VA. The file has all 50 pages, and they give you a confirmation that all 50 pages are received. I'm sure everyone here has sent a fax or something similar at some point, and if you send a 5-page fax, sometimes only 4 pages show up on the other end. Maybe a couple pages stuck together or something got jammed in there. Well, same thing if you send a paper claim into the VA with all those pages, they're just going to run it through a high-speed scanner, and if a page sticks together or if it gets jammed in there, oftentimes it doesn't get pulled out and neatly taped back together and put in there. It's just left out, and then it becomes an incomplete claim, taking longer to process. There are lots of little things like that that people don't realize or understand in how it goes with the VA. It's unfortunately not a very user-friendly situation. I hear people say, oh, Medicaid is so hard. I'll be honest with you, Medicaid is really easy compared to getting veterans benefits. You know, there's a lot of things out there that I believe they should make harder or as hard as getting veterans benefits, but it's very easy to get. But veterans benefits is certainly not one of them. Barbara, I see the number getting bigger in the chat. I'm not seeing what they are, but if we have 26 questions on there, should we address them sometime soon?
Yeah, I've been giving some resources to Dexter to put into the chat. So they're not all questions, but there are some here. Let's go back here. I think the last one, I think there's some clarity on disability indemnity compensation that we clarify with the DIC. Shireen had mentioned that she has her father is a peacetime veteran. Can he get assistance with caregiving costs, nursing home costs, or other medical costs? He has approximately $3,000 income monthly. Previously, they were told only wartime veterans, and I think you were describing earlier, it depends on what they were exposed to, because you said peacetime veterans was one of the legs. So I think she's looking for some guidance on that. And then let me piggyback off of that. You might be able to address is Erlene James has her brother. He was in the National Guard. He's currently in rehab, and she's trying to assist him to find out what eligibility he has and benefits, for her brother, which is currently in rehab. And then I think another one here, Karen had mentioned her father served in Coast Guard for a few years. He didn't retire from the service. He retired as a civilian fire department. Is he eligible for caregiving services? I'm only going to give you 3 because I know that's a lot of information.
Sure. So I'll try and cover them. And if Barbara, keep check on what I'm saying here, because I may go off in a different direction and forget to cover one of those points, but I want to make sure we do cover them all. So get me back on track if I got too far off.
Got you covered.
So coming back from rehab and things like that, and if a person does not have the means to pay for care, and it's past the point of them living at home. There are veterans homes out there. Now, being where we are, Southeast Pennsylvania Veterans Home is in Spring City. Their coordinator also looks over the one that is in Philadelphia up on the boulevard. Now, they offer different services. One is more of an assisted, offers assisted living and skilled nursing, I believe, which is Southeast Pennsylvania Home. And then the one off the boulevard in Philadelphia, I believe, is only skilled nursing.
Yeah, we're in the Maryland area, Scott, so keep that in mind, Maryland, D.C.
Oh, yes, Maryland, D.C. So, and there are veterans homes there. Now, one thing I do want to mention about the veterans homes, they are, everyone thinks they are owned and operated by the government, and that is not necessarily true. Oftentimes they're subsidized by the government, but sometimes they are state-run. Sometimes, some of them are, especially more in rural areas, are independently owned and operated and subsidized by the state and or by the government. So you have to talk to each individual home because every home has different qualifiers. They will allow you to keep different amounts of money. They may require you to contribute different percentages of your income. So I am a big proponent of checking with them and seeing what services they can provide as far as the veteran being able to move there. I also encourage you to talk to them sooner and later, because if they have a high census, it can be quite a waiting period to get into some of those homes. I've seen times when their census was high, they changed their criteria and upped that to only accepting applications from veterans that have a 70% or higher disability rating, just to put an application in because they have a high census. When the census is lower, they loosen that up. But I've seen times where there's as much as a 2-year waiting list. And if you don't take the opportunity when it comes up, you go to the back of the line. You can't just say, well, Dad's having a good month and can you call us back at the next opening? Nope, you either move in 3 days or you go to the back of the line and start your year wait all over again. The home care benefits that you're talking about, you do not have to be a wartime veteran for the home care benefits. Now, the aid and attendance benefit that we talked about earlier, that's money that comes directly into someone's bank account. Presently in 2024, the widow is $1,478, a single veteran is $2,300, and a veteran with a dependent or a married veteran or adult disabled child that is a dependent is $2,727. That's going to go up 2.5% at the beginning of the year, just like Social Security. All this money comes out from the U.S. Treasury, so all of it goes up the same amount. Same with disability compensation and DIC that comes from the VA. You had mentioned in there someone that was in the military but retired as a government employee. So retirement from the military or as a government employee is not a VA benefit. That is retirement from Department of Defense. So someone that gets their retirement check coming from the Department of Defense and OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, that is not VA. That is completely separate. Now, it will be counted as income if there is an income calculation or income is going to be taken into consideration for whichever benefit they're applying for. In the case of the aid and attendance benefit, it's a calculation. And here's where it gets confusing. Those numbers that I talked about, like 2,300 for a veteran or 2,727, they'll say that's an income limitation if you look it up on the VA website. But you have to go a little further into the weeds to realize it's a calculation. So I've had people that have a $5,000 a month income, but they had a cost of care, either cost of home care or cost of maybe assisted living that's more than $5,000 a month. So we take that cost of care, it's called an out-of-pocket, unreimbursed, consistent and recurring medical expense. We subtract that from their income, and that makes what's called an IVAP calculation, income for VA purposes, meaning that their income is $0 per month left over per the VA calculation. So just because you see those numbers and it says that's an income limitation, know that there's a calculation behind that for the aid and attendance benefit. Okay, that income calculation, we calculate the income down to zero, and that's how we get to that. Now, again, we need the eligibility requirements of 1 day served during a wartime period out of 90 days consecutive active duty service. So that means if someone served mostly during peacetime, but their service overlapped with a wartime area, even just by 1 day, they were available to go to war that 1 day, and they could potentially qualify for the aid and attendance benefit. Now, they need to have been on active duty at the time, so it does preclude a lot of reservists from the aid and attendance benefit. So unless that reserve unit was called to active duty for 90 days or more, and one of those 90 days was during the wartime period, that would be the only way reservists would be qualified for that aid and attendance benefit. So those 5 basic things are wartime dates of service, a doctor's verification that we need help with 2 or more activities of daily living, or we have a cognitive impairment that requires a protective environment, can be used as one of the activities of daily living, or an official diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's, which can take the place of both activities of daily living, as well as blindness by the VA's criteria, which is a little bit more stringent than blindness as per Social Security's criteria. Barbara, did I cover the 3 parts of the question that you had asked?
Yes, I think you did. Hopefully, I know that Linda was asking about DC residents. Someone had asked about a list of homes for veterans assisted living homes, which you might not know, but I will take the responsibility and tap into that. If you have signed up for this particular coffee chat, we have your email address and we will send that information out afterwards. And if we can get information, I see someone is looking to relocate, possibly brother from Maryland to PA, so maybe you can assist with that. So if anything you can provide Scott in the PA area, I'm not sure where they're located at. We'll just kind of pull together a list as a resource. Let me make sure I'm coming back here. We put your website in there. I did put a couple things in there about 1010EZ forms. Get in the system, get that form filled out, get yourself a primary provider like what Scott has mentioned. Let's see here. The next one, Mary is saying, why is DC Veterans Benefits through the mayor's office? They've not been helpful to answer or respond to emails, texts. Father served as an Army, as a master sergeant for 44 plus years, did not have the resources when he was sick. Now she's caring for his widow. Too bad we didn't have that information. And yes, the recording will be sent to you. We can definitely send that out. So I'm not sure, can you address the thing about DC veterans? Do you know a little bit more about that? I know they go through Irving Street, but can you elaborate on that, Scott, please?
Sure. And, you know, a lot of political offices, mayor's offices, congressmen's offices, senators' offices, almost all of them have a veterans liaison. And they want to serve the community. Of course, sometimes it's self-serving. Yes, our office can do everything. You always want to come to us. We want to be your go-to person. But it doesn't mean they're always the best suited person to do that. Maybe there's other county offices that might be able to help. There's also the national hotline for VA, which sometimes is helpful, sometimes is not. I'm not a real proponent of giving their number out because I've been on the phone with them many times. They've given me misinformation and incorrect information about my own benefits, told families that we have been helping, things that were absolutely were not true about, you know, how to get benefits or what's required. And sometimes it's just confusing that they'll say, for instance, someone needs to be qualified for a pension benefit before they can get aid and attendance. Well, it's kind of a catch-22. The aid and attendance calculation gets them qualified for the pension benefit, and then aid and attendance is an add-on on top of that. But back to the mayor's office, it's probably not, I know it's not a requirement that you go through them, although they may make it seem that way. You can go to other service organizations. DAV is one of them. I encourage going to one at a pension maintenance center. There's a DAV now the DC area is covered by the Philadelphia office. Everything east of the Mississippi and overseas is covered by the Philadelphia office. So DAV stands for Disabled American Veterans. They're a veteran service organization. They have an office of paid employees that actually work in the pension maintenance center where the benefits are approved. For compensation, DIC, things like that, oftentimes we'll refer to them. When it comes to the aid and attendance benefit, or I know Medicaid is outside of the veterans portion of it, but we can help with Medicaid too. Those are places where our office can shine and help you with that. We have helped veterans and families and civilians throughout the country with those government benefits, Medicaid and the aid and attendance portion of it. So if we can help with that, we're glad to do that. People that are having problems with other benefits, I sometimes direct them to congressmen's offices. Senators' offices have those liaisons as well, but the thing that's unique about a congressman's office is if you go through their liaison can put something into the VA. Let's say the claim has been submitted and it's stalled, and you feel like you're getting a runaround that's going in circles. If the inquiry comes from a congressman's office, it is considered a congressional inquiry, and the VA is obligated to create an answer or give you an answer within 30 days. Now, notice I didn't say they're obligated to give you an award. They're obligated to give you an answer, but at least it will get it unstuck, and it will tell you what they're waiting for or what is still needed in order to progress with it further. Another thing I caution people about, when you do get communication from the VA, oftentimes they will send you a lot of forms that you don't need. Be very, very careful and meticulous in what you read from them, and stay focused on the benefit that you're applying for, because they use, I always call it that great big little word. They use that word if this applies, and most of the time it doesn't apply because it's a different benefit or something else. Then we've included 5 other forms in this packet for you to fill out. And people don't realize it's just wasting their time, and it ends up wasting the VA's time too and clogging up the system. So again, that's something sometimes we can help in those areas, keep you focused on the right thing. If nothing else, maybe we can keep you from chasing your tail on not trying to put in a lot of effort into something where you're not qualified. We would have that reviewed by a veteran service officer, a national VA accredited or VA accredited attorney, a national veteran service officer, someone like that is qualified to help you make those decisions. So don't feel like you're pigeonholed into using one place. You can always find the closest VA medical center and ask for the eligibility office. And the eligibility office will oftentimes be able to point you in the right direction. If you are working on behalf of a veteran that is getting care, such as the home care benefit or something like that, ask for the Office of Care Coordination. The Office of Care Coordination, it's their job to coordinate the care for the veteran. All day, every day, that's what they do. So I know the social workers are great. They do the best job that they can, but lots of times they're overwhelmed. They have 3 people waiting every time you're on the phone with them. Sometimes they don't have enough hours in a day to get back to everybody or follow up on everything. But in the Office of Care Coordination, that's their job. And they're usually very good at following up and coordinating the care for that veteran and helping with things like home-based primary care, getting the OT, PT, home care services, all those types of things put into place for those veterans. So hopefully that'll help your person that was directed to the mayor's office.
Yeah, that's good. I know a lot of acronyms are being said here. I know that's just a military way, so we try to describe that. I know Linda had asked about DAV, the Disabled American Veterans. From the home care perspective, that's what Visiting Angels is a part of. We are a certified veterans provider. So the veterans literally send us the referral. So if you are looking for home care or respite care through the VA, you have to request an agency. And we ask that you do request Visiting Angels. And we can help you with that, giving you the information. But OT is occupational therapy, PT is physical therapy, ST is speech therapy. Those are the things that we can assist with. We can help with the ADLs. ADLs are activities of daily life. That is helping with medication reminders, toiletring, getting dressed, meal preparation, safety supervision. One of the things that we do not provide is transportation, but I found out yesterday on a call that there is a special agency that can help with transportation. You can get reimbursed by. So there's a lot of resources. If you're interested in more virtual sessions on this, I know Scott is a wealth of information. Maybe if everybody wants to react and put a thumbs up, if you want us to invite him back to come back and talk further on this, depending on what Scott's schedule is, give us a thumbs up. Oh, I see thumbs going there. Everybody's going.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
We would be happy to bring him back. And him being a veteran, he has started this because of his frustration. So we want to work with him. We want to help you any way we possibly can. So, Scott, looks like you're coming back. We'll have to schedule it for another time. Look at that.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that. And we appreciate Visiting Angels. You know, we've been doing a lot with you guys. You guys have helped. Visiting Angels has helped a lot of our veteran families. You do a fantastic job. We always get good feedback and good results. And we appreciate you supporting our program and doing the outreach to help more people learn about the benefits that are available for their family members.
Yeah, well, Scott, your first name is Scott, obviously. Last name is Ferguson. You know, if you want to go ahead and I think we put here the website in there, so go back through the chat. If you want to save the chat, just kind of copy it and drop it in a Word document. But we will send out Scott's information. Dexter, if you want to go ahead and put that back in there so they can grab it. I do want to let you know that Visiting Angels covers the DC area. We cover the Edgewater area, Prince George's County, and Montgomery County, and Anne Arundel County for our service area. We've been in business for almost 25 years. So we are really good at pairing up. A lot of our caregivers have gone through the post-traumatic stress syndrome training. And we work with a lot of veterans that go through with that. Please let us know what your needs are. Any other questions? Let's give us another couple minutes there. Throw in last minute. Scott, I want to thank you for your time and effort. Thank you for what you do. Let me put my camera on so I can salute you. There you go. I went off camera just to make sure that everyone was focused on you. And let's see here. Shireen had asked what was the second branch? You gave third branches. Can you relate to that? What was the second branch that you had?
We have the burial and cemetery.
Okay.
The healthcare part, doctors, hospitals, prescriptions, and the pension maintenance centers is where the money comes from. That's the three locations I had mentioned, one of them being in Philadelphia and the other in St. Paul, Minnesota, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's where the money comes from for compensation, DIC, disability, and the aid and attendance benefit and improved pension benefits.
Okay, and I do believe that someone mentioned that the father of passing caring, she might be a great candidate for that aid and attendance, so that might be a good follow-up. So please, please, please reach out to Scott. Dexter, do you want to wrap things up a little bit?
Yeah, there was I could just say it's really an amazing episode, you know.
Right, and we also Visiting Angels is a international. So if you're down in North Carolina, we partner with other Visiting Angels franchises so we can get you connected with someone in that particular area, even in Pennsylvania. So we're nationwide as well. So that makes a great partnership, right, Scott?
It certainly does.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. See you next month.
See you then.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
At Visiting Angels, we're committed to enriching the lives of elders and their significant others. Our monthly coffee chat sessions aim to make your lives easier and better by providing quality information from our expert panelists. We're here to elevate your quality of life, offer practical wisdom, and ensure you have access to valuable insights. See you again next third Wednesday of the month.